Chapter 721. Impossible. The Ghostwood King's emotionless expression changed drastically. Although he had not taken care of Yi Chun in 3 attacks, he was confident that he would be able to kill the wounded Yi Chun in the next 3 attacks. However, he did not know what kind of secret art his opponent had used. But not only had his wounds healed completely, even his mental power had been adjusted to its peak. His aura had increased instead of decreasing. Nothing is impossible. Yi Chun smiled casually. However, that smile gave people a feeling of coldness. The Ghostwood King calmly thought for a while, then slowly said, "I was almost fooled by you. This secret technique of yours must have a huge side effect. Once the side effect is triggered, it will definitely backfire on its owner." He did not think that there was any secret art that could go against the rules of nature. Let's try and find out. Yi Chun did not express his opinion. The immortal body did have side effects, but these side effects could be made up with yuan qi recovering pellets or spirit herbs. In other words, as long as he had enough yuan qi, he could theoretically perform the immortal body countless times. Ghostwood King, why haven't you taken care of that brat yet? The elder could not be distracted at all. As time passed by, his speed was not that useful anymore. His opponent's casual attacks had already made him unable to perform his full power. He had to admit that although the average battling power of a human demi-king was not as powerful as a demi-beast king, but their battling techniques were way more powerful than them. Plus, Qing Lu's battling power was not weaker than his. She might even be a bit more powerful. Hold on for a bit longer. The Ghostwood King said. All right, you have to take care of it as soon as possible. The elder did not know what had happened to the Ghostwood King. All he knew was that he was starting to regret. If he had let the Ghostwood King take care of Qing Lu, then the situation would have been even, since the Ghostwood King was a bit slower than him in every other aspect. This Yi Chun really can't be judged by his cultivation base. Qing Lu was different from the elder. Besides the fact that she was not used to the elder's speed at the beginning, she was able to handle it with ease. She was able to pay attention to Yi Chun's situation, and it was much better than what she had expected. Yi Chun isn't injured? Lin Gaoming, the Peak Lord of Taixian Peak, was quite surprised to see Yi Chun's undying body for the first time. However, Yin Fengfeng was no longer surprised. When Yi Chun fought with Lu Wujian, he seemed to have revealed this ability, suppressing Lu Wujian to the point where he couldn't even fight back. As for Morong Qingcheng, her expression was calm. When Yi Chun obtained the secret method of the undying body, she was right beside him. I don't have the patience to tangle with you. The Ghostwood King was a half-step king cultivated from Ghostwood. Even if he was impatient, his expression didn't change at all. However, his tone revealed his emotions. Inescapable net. Whoosh 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 whoosh, countless black vines shot out from the Ghostwood King's body. These vines were surrounded by black qi. Wherever they went, the vitality in the air would be completely gone. It was dead silent. In the blink of an eye, layers upon layers of vines appeared. It was unknown how many layers had been set up. Some of the vines even took root underground, absorbing the vitality in the ground to strengthen themselves and grow on their own. This Ghostwood King is indeed tricky. Yin Fengfeng tried to burn the vines with her nirvana flame, but once the Ghostwood King sensed it, he immediately cut off the vine, not giving her any chance to do anything. Not only that, the vines taking root underground grew more and more out of control. They started to grow crazily. Even the trees miles away were affected and started to wither rapidly. With so much vitality gathered together, it formed an unbreakable cycle. The Ghostwood King and Yi Chun's figures could no longer be seen, as they were wrapped in a huge ball of vines with a diameter of no less than 5 miles. Huge sword spell. Yi Chun had no reason to let the Ghostwood King use his advantage. His slightly damaged gold sword shot out and expanded in the air, turning into a huge sword and attacking toward the Ghostwood King. Meanwhile, his left hand also formed a sword finger and pointed out. The green longsword on his waist also shot out. One sword turned into 3, attacking toward the Ghostwood King's left side. He could tell that although the Ghostwood King's power was horrifying, his speed was his weakness. From the beginning until now, he hadn't moved at all. Boom! The Ghostwood King knocked away the gold sword with one punch, but he couldn't block the green longsword. A huge chunk of his protective beast power was shaved off, and the sword chi left a bloody wound on his shoulder. A vine flew out, using the huge sword spell to shake up my protective beast power, then using the defensive sword spell to break through. The Ghostwood King's protective beast power was extremely powerful. Under normal circumstances, the defensive sword spell would have a hard time breaking through his protective beast power. However, due to the clash with the huge sword spell, his protective beast power was not stable, which gave the flying sword a chance. If it wasn't for the vine growing out of his shoulder, it wouldn't have been as simple as a bloody wound, but a piece of flesh. Soul-shattering fist. Soul-shattering. The Ghostwood King's body did not move, but both of his fists continued to attack, throwing out one tricky fist power after another. Yi Chen did not dare to be careless, so he used all of his power. Each of him controlled 2 flying swords. The gold sword turned into a huge sword, and the green longsword turned into 3, and then into 5. Sword shadows filled the air, and they were evenly matched with the Ghostwood King. All of a sudden, no one could do anything to the other. Of course, only when one's soul power had reached Yi Chen's level would one be able to control 2 flying swords at once. However, even so, Yi Chen was not feeling too good either. Right now, it looked like they were evenly matched, but the Ghostwood King was a half-step king warrior after all. Each of his punches was full of power, and Yi Chen had to use all of his power to block them out. If it were not for his undying body and the godly dragon metal that stored 1/3 of his Jun Yuan, he would have lost already. Outside of the huge vine ball, a loud rumbling sound was heard. Morong Qingqing, Yan Fengfeng, and the other 2 started to attack the huge vine ball. The 3 of them cooperated perfectly, first using the Nirvana flame to burn the vines. The Ghostwood King had no choice but to control the vines and let the burning vines fall down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Morong Qingqing and Lin Gaoming started to attack crazily, trying to break through the huge vine ball. It was also because of their combined attacks that the Ghostwood King was distracted and could not focus on attacking Yi Chen. Otherwise, the pressure on Yi Chen would be even greater. Since you all want to die, then I will let you die. The Ghostwood King's beast power exploded, and the vines that had been wrapped into a ball started to move. Countless vines were like whips, whipping toward the 3 outside. These vines contained half-step king warrior beast power, and their attacking power was horrifying. It was no less powerful than the full power attack of a top master level warrior. Hundreds of vines whipped over, and even with the 3's powerful strength, they were still pushed back continuously, unable to get close. The power of a half-step beast king had shocked the 3. Fighting 1 against 4, he still had the upper hand. Mysterious void seal. All of a sudden, a huge palm print appeared on the surface of the huge vine ball, and the broken vines flew everywhere. The Ghostwood King, who was in the middle of it, suddenly had a pale face, and his qi and blood started to boil. It turned out that Qing Lu had taken out her hand and used a mysterious void seal to attack the huge vine ball. Her power was not weaker than the Ghostwood King, and the latter was also doing 2 things at the same time. He was battling with Yi Chen on one side, while controlling the vines to attack Morong Qingqing and the other 2. He was caught off guard, so he was at a disadvantage. 5 sword attack. Yi Chen took advantage of the time when the Ghostwood King's qi and blood were boiling. The gold sword and the green longsword each separated into 5, and 10 sword shadows attacked toward the Ghostwood King. Chin! 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 Swoosh! Swoosh! After a series of metal exploding sounds, the protective beast power started to not be able to hold on any longer. A couple of cracks appeared on it, and the sharp sword qi leaked in, attacking the Ghostwood King's body. Break! The Ghostwood King suppressed his qi and blood. His beast power exploded, and he was able to get out of this crisis. Just like that, the Ghostwood King, the Dwarf Elder, Qing Lu, Yi Chen and Morong Qingqing, a total of 7 people, were all dragged into a long battle. No one could do anything to the other. As the battle was going on, more and more human shadows were attracted to the forest. In the northwest was the skinny elder, and the teenager with the glaze symbol on his forehead. In the west was the gold absolute king, and the powerful warriors from the evil king tower. In the north was the punishment king, and the powerful warriors from the hell martial school. In other directions, there were some scattered human shadows. There were demi-king warriors from rank 5 martial institutions, and some of them were solo demi-king warriors. All of a sudden, there were almost 10 demi-king warriors gathered. Haha, it seems like there is some great treasure. Otherwise, the battle would not be this intense. The gold absolute king laughed as he licked his lips. If they are not powerful enough, then it would not matter even if we kill them all. The punishment king's killing intent was the heaviest. He was talking about killing Yi Chun and the rest. It is the Ghostwood King. From afar, the skinny elder saw the huge vine ball in the middle of the forest and said, "Ghostwood King? Is this person very powerful?" The teenager asked. The skinny elder said, "The Ghostwood King is a demi-beast king cultivated from a ghost wood. He is born with the ability to absorb life force and strengthen his body. His talent is to release the vine realm and create a huge ball to trap the enemies inside. These vines would take root in the ground and absorb the life force from the plants around, which would reduce the consumption of the Ghostwood King's beast power. It is a very tricky attack. If you run into him, it would be best not to fight." Everyone moved extremely fast. Soon, they were already hundreds of miles away from the center of the battle. Not good. There are so many demi-king warriors. Qing Lu's expression changed as she suddenly pulled back. "What? Are you scared?" The dwarf elder let out a breath and said. Qing Lu said with an annoyed expression, "Look around." Hearing her, the dwarf elder let out his soul power and spread out. The next second, his expression changed a couple of times. Within his sensing range, 7 or 8 demi-king warriors had appeared out of nowhere. Each of them was not to be underestimated. There were even 1 or 2 of them whose chi was extremely horrifying, no weaker than Qing Lu. But soon he laughed evilly again. "What does this have to do with me? It is you guys who got the fire pear tree, not us. You tell me, if they know that you guys got the tree, what will they do?" Qing Lu's expression looked bad. "You might have some treasures on you. Worst case scenario, we will fight to the death. I believe they will not mind killing you as well. Then let's see who dies first." The dwarf elder's eyes flashed as if he was calculating something. Chapter 722. The Ghostwood King fought against 4 of them at the same time, but he still could not take down Yi Chen. It made him realize that Yi Chen's power could not be judged by his cultivation. Although the Ghostwood King was not a top half-step beast king, he was still one of the top ones among them. Normal half-step beast kings would not be able to last until now, but Yi Chen with his peak-level mid-seas of Soul's Realm cultivation could not only handle it, but also threaten him from time to time. If he was a little bit careless, he would be wounded, which made him re-evaluate Yi Chen. If Yi Chen managed to reach late seas of Soul's Realm, then he would be able to fight against him. Although he was in the middle of an intense battle, the Ghostwood King still let out his soul power from time to time. The arrival of all the half-step king warriors had been sensed by him. He took back his beast power, and the Ghostwood King stopped attacking Yi Chen. That huge ball of vines had also sunk back into the ground. However, it did not mean that those vines were useless. At the critical moment, the vines with enough life force could trap everyone within miles. As for whether or not it would be broken through, it would be another story. Yi Chen was not stupid. Although he could not sense what was going on outside with his dual swords, the expression on the Ghostwood King's face had told him that something had changed. Indeed, when Yi Chen let out his soul power, he immediately knew why the Ghostwood King had stopped attacking. The Gold Absolute King and the Punish King's power are not weaker than Qing Lu's. Compared to the Ghostwood King, they are even more powerful. Just these 2 alone are not something that the Ghostwood King and that dwarf elder can compete with. Adding the other 5 half-step king warriors and 20 top master level warriors, if they are against us, we will definitely lose. Yi Chen's expression turned serious. The situation right now was not good for them, and they might become the target of everyone. Shoo! Shoo! Coincidentally, Yi Chen and Qing Lu flew to the side of Morong Fengfeng and the other two at the same time. They then pulled out some distance to avoid being surrounded. The Ghostwood King and the Dwarf Elder also didn't have the time to bother the five of them. They also kept their distance and waited to see what would happen. In just a few blinks of an eye, the half-step kings and peak master level masters, who had rushed over from all directions, stopped dozens of li away. They all had different expressions on their faces. Some were expressionless and cold, some had a playful expression and a fierce glint in their eyes, and some were just watching from the sidelines, as if they didn't want to get involved easily. So many half-step kings. Mysterious peak leader Lin Gaoming sucked in a cold breath. Qing Lu said with a low voice, "There are 7 demi-king warriors in total. The most powerful one among them should be the Punishment King from the Prison Martial School, followed by the Gold Absolute King from the Evil King Martial School. These two are not weaker than me in terms of power. Among the remaining 5, the Iron Hand King from the Gu family in the East Royal City would be the strongest." As the former leader of the mysterious martial school, other than some of the newly born demi-king warriors, and those who had not been in the martial world for a long time, Qing Lu almost knew everyone. "Who is this half-step king on the left?" Yi Chen glanced at the 7 demi-king warriors, and eventually fixed his eyes on the elder in brown on the left. Qing Lu glanced at the elder on the left and said, "This person is the Shadow King from the Rank 5 Martial School in the Sky Martial region." "What's wrong?" Yi Chen said. "Among the demi-king warriors, his qi is the weakest. When the situation is dangerous, we can choose to break through from his side." Qing Lu did not know how Yi Chen judged the qi, but she had a different opinion. The Shadow King might be the weakest in terms of battling power, but his speed is not weaker than the elder. His battling style is also very strange, which makes him hard to deal with. It will not be easy to break through from his side. Of course it will not be easy, but in comparison, it would be easier for me to deal with these fast, but not powerful demi-king warriors. Right now, Yi Chen's power was not weaker than normal demi-king warriors. Even the Ghostwood King would not be able to hurt him. The Shadow King's qi was the weakest among all the demi-king warriors there. So choosing him was something that Yi Chen had no other choice. It was not that Yi Chen did not care about the Shadow King. Qing Lu thought about it and agreed with him. Yi Chen's defensive sword spell was already extremely fast. It would not be possible for him to dodge the attack with his speed. "Haha, Gopher King, you are a fly that never bites a seamless egg. What has attracted you here this time, and even made you fight a big battle?" It was the Iron Hand King from the Gu family in the East Emperor City. Qing Lu did not know the Ghostwood King and the Elder, but he did. He had also fought with the Elder, who was the Gopher King before, so he knew his habits. The Gopher King forced a smile and said, "Iron Hand King, you seem to know me well, but what I want to do has nothing to do with you, right?" To be honest, the fire pear tree was too tempting for him. He would rather spend more effort than to tell the truth about the fire pear tree being with Yi Chen, because once he did, the chance of him getting the tree would be even smaller. He did not believe that Yi Chen had been with Qing Lu the whole time. Huh. Hearing him, Qing Lu let out a breath. It seemed like the Gopher King would not tell the truth anymore. Indeed, if he did, it would mean giving up. The Iron Hand King rolled his eyes and laughed. "You have 2 demi-king warriors on your side, and they only have 1. Then it would not be you who got the treasure. Therefore you guys are planning to rob it. And this is the Forbidden Forest, there are a lot of spirit trees here. The treasure would basically be spirit trees. How could it be a mid-rank spirit tree for you to rob it? It must be a top-rank one. Gopher King, am I right?" The Iron Hand King was very cunning. With just a few words, he had already explained everything, which made Qing Lu, Yi Chen, and the rest of the people's expressions change. The Gopher King chuckled. Since they had already guessed it, there was no point in hiding it. "Let's go." Qing Lu knew the Iron Hand King's personality. He was very greedy, so it would not be good for them to stay. "Mysterious King, the treasure should belong to the right person. Leave the top-rank spirit tree behind and leave." The Iron Hand King was not afraid of the mysterious school. There were 2 king warriors in the Gu family of the East Emperor City. One was the East King, and the other was the Destruction King. If the two worked together, Even if they could not win against Xianhou, they could at least make her feel a bit scared. Plus, this was the forbidden place. As long as they did not kill her, Xianhou would not look for trouble with them. Iron Hand King, this is only your opinion. You say we have the top-rank spirit tree, so we have it? Qing Lu said with a low voice. Whether you do or not, take out the thing in your ring, and we will know. The Punishment King crossed his arms in front of his chest and said lightly, yeah, take it out for everyone to see. If you don't have it, we will naturally not look for trouble with you. There are so many of us here. You have to give us an explanation. The attraction of a top-rank spirit tree was too huge. It was 10 times more valuable than a semi-extreme rank weapon. If a martial school had a top-rank spirit tree, their overall power would increase by another level. Most importantly, a top-rank spirit tree's lifespan was at least 10,000 years. In other words, in the future, the top-rank spirit tree's usefulness would be limitless. If you want us to open our ring, it is not impossible. But, you guys have to open your ring as well. In this moving forbidden place, we might not be the only ones with treasures. Yi Chen saw that they had become the target of everyone, so he took a deep breath and said calmly, Brat, we are talking. Since when did you have the right to interrupt? Are you tired of living? The Iron Hand King had a creepy look on his face. He would not kill the mysterious King Qing Lu, but it did not mean that he would not kill Yi Chen. A mere peak-level mid-seas of Soul's Realm warrior dared to bargain with them. Iron Hand King, who are you trying to scare? Once we get out of the forbidden place, I will let you know how high the sky is. Qing Lu had never been this frustrated before. A killing intent appeared in her eyes. Hee, I will be waiting for you. The Iron Hand King did not care at all. Shadow King, move. This place was not suitable for them to stay for long. So Qing Lu brought Yi Chen, and the rest flying toward the Shadow King. Sorry, this way is blocked. The Shadow King would not let go of this opportunity. He was the fastest, so his chance of getting the top-rank spirit tree might not be any lower than the Punishment King and the Gold Absolute King. Even if it is blocked, it has to be blocked. Yi Chen did not want to waste time with him at all. He pointed out his sword finger, and the gold sword, and the green longsword took out of their scabbards. Each of them split into 5, turning into 10 sword shadows that shot toward the Shadow King. Because of their speed and the sudden attack, even if the Shadow King had a fast reaction, he was still one step late. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions were heard, and the Shadow King's whole body was blown away. Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. Qing Lu was only a bit slower than Yi Chen. She waved her hand, and that crystal-like palm power blew out all of the top master-level warriors that the Shadow King had brought. It was like swatting flies so effortlessly. Let's go! Qing Lu's protective Zhen Yuan covered Lin Gaoming, while Yin Fengfeng turned into her blue phoenix form. The sword wings on Yi Chen's back flapped intensely, while a black light flashed once on Morong Qingqing's body. The 4 of them used their highest speed to break out of the encirclement. Within a blink of an eye, they were already dozens of miles away. Where do you think you are going? The Iron Hand King lifted up his right hand. A black metal shine appeared on his palm, as he threw out a palm attack toward Yi Chen and the other 4. Boom! This palm attack contained 2 types of profound, which were the gold profound and the earth profound. The sky darkened as a massive iron hand grabbed toward the 5. Landing spell. Qing Lu was a demi-king warrior after all. She knew that these people would not let them leave easily. So while flying, she had already started to make a spell. The second the massive iron hand attacked, a crystal palm print landed from the sky, pressing down on the iron hand. Punishment kill. The Iron Hand King's attack had been cancelled out, but there was still an even more powerful Punishment King behind him. The Punishment King's attack was the same as the Punishment King's. He formed a spell with both of his hands, and the sound of iron chains came from the surreal space. Something shocking happened. In the deep of the surreal space, 10 iron chains landed from the sky, locking onto the 5 wrists. It was not hard to guess that being locked by these iron chains would not be a good thing. Punishment King, how dare you? Qing Lu's face was full of evil intent. This punishment kill was the famous punishment martial art of the Punishment King. Once locked by the iron chains, one would be no better than a criminal. Mysterious escape. Her Zhen Yuan burst out, and a blurry door appeared in front of her. Once the door appeared, Qing Lu brought Lin Gaoming and flew in. When they reappeared, they were already 50 miles away. It was a real instantaneous movement, and there was no trace of movement. However, Qing Lu was very worried. She and Lin Gaoming had escaped, but there were still Yin Fengfeng and Yi Chen chasing after them. Nirvana fire. Yin Fengfeng, who had turned into her blue phoenix form, flapped her wings. The aggressive Nirvana fire attacked toward the iron chains in the surreal space. The iron chains were burned by the fire, and a part of them was cut off. Morong, you can escape by yourself. I have a way. There was no time for Zhen Yuan sound transmission, so Yi Chen talked to Morong directly with his soul. It was like they were connected, and it was a method that only he could master. Although Morong Qingqing was worried, she knew that Yi Chen had said it with confidence. If she stayed, she would only drag them down. Her demon power essence poured into the black wings on her back. Morong Qingqing's speed had reached beyond Demi-King warrior level. She could travel hundreds of miles within a second, and the iron chains were only locking onto a shadow. Chapter 723. Swoosh. The iron chain was falling at an extremely fast speed. The end of the chain was like an agile little snake, wrapping around Yi Chen's wrist and body. Once he was entangled, the consequences would be unimaginable. Shadow spell. At that critical moment, Yi Chen's body started to turn illusionary. His real body shot out from the illusionary body, and that horrifying iron chain was actually locking onto a shadow like Yi Chen. This shadow Yi Chen was still struggling, looking no different from a living person. Crack! The Punishment King did not just lock people down with the iron chain. After locking people down, it followed up with another attack. A blade light flashed in the air, and an illusionary executioner's blade sliced through the shadow Yi Chen's body. There was no blood, but the shadow Yi Chen was cut in half, disappearing into nothingness. So close, dozens of miles away, Yi Chen's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He had not expected the Punishment King to be this powerful. If it were not for the fact that he had trained his shadow profound to near completion, and trained his separating shadow flying art to mid-rank profound sense flying art, even if he did not die, he would have been crippled by that attack. Shadow profound. A surprised look flashed through the Punishment King's eyes. Qing Lu being able to escape from the executioner's attack was within his expectations, since she was not weaker than him in terms of power. It would be weird if she could not escape from it. Yin Fengfeng being able to escape from it was not that surprising, since the Blue Phoenix was one of the most powerful top-ranked beasts. Among the demi-beasts, those demi-beast primogenitors like the blue-eyed white wolf and the sky tiger were all similar to the Blue Phoenix. Moreover, the Blue Phoenix's Nirvana fire was inherited from the Phoenix, so its destructive power was not hard to imagine. As for that woman with the black bat wings on her back, she should have a perfect demonic human bloodline and cultivated devilish energy. But just that wasn't enough to escape his executioner's chains. At the last moment, the devilish energy that had surged out of her body was of an extremely high quality. It was definitely king-level devilish energy. Even if it was diluted, it still contained an inconceivable might. It had instantly increased her speed to a terrifying level. So it was understandable that she had been able to escape. The only thing that moved the Punishment King was Yi Chen. The Shadow Profound was one of the most difficult profound to comprehend. In terms of speed, it might not be as fast as the Wind Profound, Thunder Profound, and Speed Profound, but in terms of speed, the Shadow Profound was above all of them. It was hard for him to imagine how Yi Chen had comprehended the Shadow Profound to this level, not far from minor completion. Interesting. I'll let you off this time. The Punish King did not chase after her. His speed was the same as Qing Lu's, maybe even slightly weaker, so it would be impossible for him to catch up. However, the other three were not slow at all. Tian those youngsters are not to be underestimated. The skinny elder said to the teenager next to him. The teenager with the symbol on his forehead said coldly, "They indeed have some tricks up their sleeves." Yin Fengfeng's Nirvana fire. Morong Qingqing's demon power essence, and Yi Chen's shadow profound and defensive sword spell had piqued his interest. Bastard! How dare you wound me? The Shadow King, who had been blown away, was furious to the extreme. He was a half-step king warrior, but he had been blown away by a peak-level mid-seas of Soul's Realm insect. He had even been wounded a little, which was something that he could not accept. He felt like he had been slapped in the face, which made him extremely embarrassed. Shadow King, you trash. You can't even stop someone. The Iron Hand King took back his sight and looked at the Shadow King with disdain, adding fuel to the fire. Ah! The Shadow King roared as he pointed at the Iron Hand King and yelled, Iron Hand King, say that again. I said that you are a trash. The Iron Hand King's tone was full of sarcasm. Die! The Shadow King's eyes turned bloodshot. He no longer cared about the fact that the Iron Hand King was stronger than him. He waved his hand and countless hidden weapons filled the sky. Each of them contained half-step King Zhen Yuan and an invincible martial will. They shrouded the Iron Hand King. You're courting death. The Iron Hand King's eyes turned cold. He made a grabbing motion with his hand, and the sky full of hidden weapons were gathered into a ball before being pushed back at the Shadow King. A few screams were heard as the Shadow King retreated a few steps without a single injury. However, the peak master level warriors of the Shadow Sect beside him were all killed. This is too cruel. The Shadow Sect is really unlucky this time. They've suffered a huge blow. Many of the onlookers shook their heads. Top grandmasters weren't as common as cabbages. There were as many of them as one wanted. This time, the 4 Extremes Emperor's tomb had appeared, and all the 5th grade sects had sent their top experts. Now that Shadow King was the only one left, one could imagine how big of a blow it was to the Shadow Sect. As if a bucket of cold water had been poured on his head, the Shadow King woke up. Seeing that all the peak master level warriors of the Shadow Sect had been killed, he said with a venomous gaze, Iron Hand King, you're so cruel. They didn't offend you. Aren't you afraid that my Shadow Sect will start a war with your Gu family? The tomb of 4 Extreme Emperor has appeared. Life and death are up to fate. If your Shadow Sect really wants to start a war with my Gu family will be waiting. I'm just afraid that you won't dare. The Iron Hand King was a bit angry earlier and didn't hold back. However, he couldn't admit that he was wrong. He could only walk this path to the end. Good. I, the Shadow King, will remember this. Your Gu family's experts better not run into me. Otherwise, not a single one will be left alive. Shwa! Leaving behind a vicious sentence, the Shadow King's body disappeared with the wind. Huh! How dare you? The Iron Hand King waved his sleeves, feeling a bit regretful. It was true that he was not afraid of the Shadow King, but the Gu family warriors beside him were not him. They would definitely not be able to block out the Shadow King's attack. Because of a moment of anger, he had made a huge enemy. You guys, don't get too far away from me. The Iron Hand King reminded the Gu family warriors. Thousands of miles away in the deep part of the mountains, Yi Chun and the other 4 stopped. Is everyone okay? Qing Lu let out a breath secretly. It was very lucky that they were able to get out alive this time. 7 half-step king warriors were not something to be messed with. As long as 3 of them attacked, the 5 of them would suffer a great loss. Luckily, Yi Chen had beaten back the Shadow King and bought them some time. Teacher, I'm fine. Yan Fengfeng's face was a bit pale. The Nirvana fire was her natal fire, and it was not endless. It would take a long time for her to recover. Senior, don't worry. Everyone is fine. Yi Chun was in the most dangerous one, but he was also the one who had consumed the least amount of power. Yan Fengfeng had escaped with her Nirvana fire. Morong Qingqing had used her demon power essence, and he had used his shadow profound. Very good. Next, we will try to be careful and find the graveyard. Qing Lu looked around and said. The forbidden place was huge and endless. The 5 did not know where they were in the forbidden place, so they could only rely on their instincts and take one step at a time. Boom! Boom! After walking for a long time, the 5 arrived at a thunder area. Perhaps this place is a spell. Such a powerful thunder. Imprinted in their eyes was a dense black thundercloud with countless lightning bolts striking down. These lightning bolts had been amplified by the power of the array, and their might was frightening. That destructive aura was enough to make one's heart tremble. Even a half-step king couldn't ignore it. Look, there seems to be a human shadow inside. Lin Gaoming accidentally glanced over and gasped. Qing Lu frowned. Who is inside? Why is he not coming out yet? As she spoke, she followed Lin Gaoming's gaze and looked over. Yi Chun and the other two looked over as well. Under the concentrated thunder and lightning attack, a human figure stood in the air, walking slowly in the sky. What startled the five people was not this. What startled them was that this figure didn't have any protective true essence around his body. The thunder and lightning struck down on his head, forehead, chest and back, nearly submerging him in a sea of thunder and lightning. But they couldn't do anything to him. He was like a conductor, and the thunder and lightning followed his body and spilled onto the ground, splashing countless arcs of electricity. So powerful, Yi Chen gasped. He could tell that this person was not a life and death realm warrior. He was just like Qing Lu, a half-step king warrior. However, these thunder and lightning were close to the full power attack of a half-step king warrior. Even a half-step king warrior would have to use his protective Zhen Yuan to block it out. However, this person could block it out with only his body. It was like his body was a conductor, able to ignore the thunder and lightning. It is him. Qing Lu blurted out. Senior Qing Lu, who is this person? Yi Chen asked curiously. Qing Lu said, there are different levels among the half-step king warriors. Although my power is not bad, I am still not at the top of the half-step king warrior level. There are 3 top half-step king warriors on this true spirit continent, and this person is one of them. He is called the Thunder Spirit King. He has the Thunder Spirit body, and his achievement in the Thunder Profound is very high. I heard that once he reaches the life and death realm, he would be able to take down the Thunder King from the Thunder region and inherit the title of Thunder King. Only he could ignore the Thunder attack that was equivalent to half-step king warrior level. Thunder Spirit King. Yi Chen had heard that among the half-step king warriors, the Thunder Spirit King was one of the most powerful ones. The tomb of the 4 extreme emperor had appeared, and almost all the half-step king warriors had come out. We will have to be more careful. Although the Thunder Spirit King is cold, he would not kill innocent people. But if we encounter other half-step king warriors, it would be hard to say. Qing Lu was not worried about herself. She was worried about Yan Fengfeng and Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded. He could feel that this time was not the same as before. Normally, the enemies he encountered would not be much more powerful than him. Even if he could not beat them, he would be able to escape. But this time, the enemies were all half-step king warriors. With his power right now, he could only fight with normal half-step king warriors. The Ghostwood King's power was slightly weaker than Qing Lu's. Without Yan Fengfeng and the other two, he would have to rely on his undying body to survive. But if it dragged on, the consequences would be unimaginable, since the Zhen Yuan of half-step king warriors was way more powerful than him, and the undying body would consume Yuan Qi. It seems like I have to find a chance to increase my cultivation to late seas of Soul's realm. Otherwise it would be too dangerous. Yi Chen's cultivation was only 1 step away from late seas of Soul's realm. Perhaps he would be able to make it in the next second. Once he did, his Zhen Yuan would be at least 30% more powerful, and the quality of his Zhen Yuan would continue to increase as well. Most importantly, when he reached the late seas of Soul's realm, he would experience the state of being one with the nature for a short period of time. Chapter 724. The Thunder Spirit King's body had already disappeared into the endless thunder ocean. Of course, Yi Chen and the other 4 would not be like the Thunder Spirit King and choose to go through this thunder area. Besides Qing Lu, the rest of them would not be able to handle the endless thunder attacks. If they tried to take it head-on, they would be turned into ashes. Following the edge of the thunder area, the 5 of them flew at a high speed. It was a dark underground world. It was not that high, only a couple 100 meters high. The top of the world was hard black mud, which was oddly shaped and sharp like blades. The surface of the mud was covered with a layer of forbidden power, supporting this huge underground world. On the ground, there were primitive jungles, swamps, rivers, and all sorts of other harsh environments. Pop! Pop! On one of the swamps, dozens of gray bubbles suddenly appeared. Boom! A massive figure appeared out of it, raising up its wok-sized fist, and attacking toward Xia Hozuan, who was in the sky. Piss off! Xia Hozuan yelled angrily, as he pointed out his finger to welcome the incoming attack. Boom! The massive figure was blown away and landed on the swamps, bringing up gray mud waves. Xia Hozuan's body was shaken as well, his qi and blood boiling. Its attacking power is only slightly weaker than mine. Xia Hozuan was very surprised as he looked down at the massive figure. It was a humanoid monster formed from gray soil. Just like the swamp, the humanoid monster's body was covered in sticky muddy water that kept slipping down. Its eyeballs were a pair of black agate stones, and it had no mouth, nose, or ears. It was 3 to 4 meters tall, and its limbs were thick. It was more appropriate to describe it as a swamp monster. Take my axe attack, the axe master. Lin Rohai's body flashed once before he arrived right next to the swamp monster. He held his massive axe with both of his hands and threw out an attack. The axe light was extremely heavy. Crack! One of the swamp monster's arms had fallen off. Awah! The swamp monster did not have a mouth, but it let out an angry roar. Its thick and powerful right leg swept out, kicking right at Lin Rohai's head. Dang! At that critical moment, Lin Rohai blocked in front of his body with his massive axe. But that kick was way too powerful. His whole body was blown away, bringing up a huge chi wave. Void-shattering finger. A sharp light flashed through Xia Hozuan's eyes as he pointed out his finger at the swamp monster's chest. Pop! The golden finger power went through the swamp monster's chest and shattered the black stones inside. Walala! As if it had lost its bones, the swamp monster softened and became one with the swamp. At the same time, an extremely terrifying power of earth and water radiated outward, dissipating into nothingness. This swamp monster should be the combination of the earth spirit and the water spirit. It's called the swamp spirit, or the swamp monster. It's much stronger than the earth spirit or the water spirit. Its body contains the power of earth and water, and it's born with the ability to control these two powers Upanishads. However, the swamp monster also has a weakness. It has an energy core inside its body. The speaker was the supreme elder of the Void Martial School, the Armored King. He was famous for his defense. Among the half-step kings of True Spirit Continent, few could surpass him in defense. Lin Rohai frowned and said, "A single swamp monster is not much weaker than me. If 4 or 5 of them come, only you Grand Elder can handle them." His power was at the same level as Xia Hozuan, so he could take on 3 to 4 swamp monsters at most. If there was one more, then he would not be able to handle it. It's been 3 days. I wonder if the others have found the entrance to the graveyard. The forbidden place was boundless. Yi Chun and the other 4 had spent 3 days, and still could not find the entrance. They could only wander around, and try their luck. Let me see. Although Yi Chun did not plan to expose his soul eye, he could use his soul power in his eyes, which would be 1/10 of the effect. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his pupils were completely silver white. 2 beams of silver white light shot out. 50 miles, 500 miles, 5,000 miles, 30,000 miles. Layers of shadows flashed past in front of Yi Chen's eyes. His gaze seemed to have traveled through time and space, and even the power of the spell could not stop it. What kind of secret art is this? Qing Lu was shocked. His eyes kept moving. After a long while, Yi Chen fixed his gaze on the southeast direction and said, 18,000 miles to the southeast, there is an underground entrance. A couple of people have gone down there. Underground entrance? Let's go check it out. Qing Lu said. All right. The silver white light faded away as Yi Chen closed his eyes and opened them again. He had used up a bit of his soul power. Shoo! The 5 of them flew toward the southeast direction at an extreme speed. Far away in front of them was an ancient underground entrance. At the entrance, there was a wide staircase that extended downwards. Haha, this should be the entrance to the tomb. Let's go down. There were at least 1,000 people who had come to the forbidden place, and there would always be some people who were lucky enough to find the entrance soon. Right then, There were dozens of people gathered at the entrance. There were 3 half-step king warriors and 12 top master-level warriors. Before them, there were already 3 to 4 people who had gone in. Shoo! Shoo! After making sure that the people who had gone in before did not run into any danger, the remaining people could not sit still anymore. Their bodies flashed as they flew down the stairs. Soon, they disappeared at the end of the stairs and could not be seen or felt anymore. They have gone in. Let's go in as well. The rest of the people started to move as well. After half an hour, Yi Chun and the other 4 arrived. It is here. Yi Chun looked at the entrance and said, "It should be the entrance to the tomb." Qing Lu let out a breath and said with a smile, "Then let's go in." The black bat wings on Morong Qingqing's back flapped. "Yeah, let's go in." Qing Lu was the first to move, and Yi Chun and the other 3 followed behind her. Waiting until the 5 disappeared at the end of the stairs, the shadow of a rock nearby started to move, and a human figure appeared. It was indeed the Shadow King. "Brat, it is all because of you that I am the only one left in the Shadow Martial School. If you run into me alone, you will die a horrible death." Shoo! The Shadow King flew in as well. The first thing that entered their eyes was the dark underground world. Looking up, the black mud was as sharp as blades. It was only a few hundred meters away from the ground. The place where the 5 appeared was a cliff. Looking down from above, they could see the ancient forests connected to each other. The dead rivers were like ropes, intertwining with each other. Such a creepy place. Yi Chun took a deep breath. He could feel that this place was full of danger. It was definitely not as peaceful as it looked. No matter how creepy it is, we have to get through it. Qing Lu also felt that this place was not a safe place. Just when Qing Lu finished talking, there was a scream coming from the forest not far away. Then, a couple of human figures flew out of the forest like birds that were scared by the twang of a bow. The trees in the forest were all very tall, not much shorter than the cliff. Therefore, after these few human figures flew out of the forest, they were not far away from the top of the black mud. That was also why they did not fly from the sky. They were afraid that there might be something else on the black mud. Chapter 725. What is going on with these people? Look at them. Yan Fengfeng frowned. As a blue phoenix, she had never known fear. As her power increased, the aggressive qi that only beasts had started to show. Her gold pupils scanned around as Morong Qingqing said to the group. In the deeper part of the forest, there are a lot of killer flowers. They look like the oldest kind. If one were to ask what the most dangerous thing in the forest was, it would not be the beasts, nor the enemies. It would be those killer flowers and killer plants. These kind of creatures in the forest would have the advantage of the terrain, and it would be hard to defend against them. The people who flew above the forest saw Yi Chun and the other 4, and their expressions changed slightly. They then left the place quickly, heading deeper into the forest. "Let's go down." Qing Lu flashed her body and jumped down the cliff. Since the forest was already 200 meters high, the top was only less than 100 meters away. The black rocks on the top were all weirdly shaped. Some looked like stalactites, hanging down all the way into the deeper part of the forest. Some looked like massive sharp teeth, spreading everywhere layer upon layer. Flying above the forest, one would not only have to avoid those rocks, but also have to watch out for the dangerous creatures hiding in the dark. Squeak! 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 After flying for a few dozen miles, countless black bats suddenly appeared from the black rocks in front of them. These bats were as big as domestic dogs, with blood-red eyes and terrifying fangs. Sensing the presence of the 5 people, they swarmed over like a swarm of bees, forming an endless black mass. Not good. It is the Dark Shadow Ghost Bat. Qing Lu was shocked. The Dark Shadow Ghost Bat had a close relationship with the demons. At the same rank, even 2 or 3 beasts would not be able to compete with them. Thunder Devour. Lifting his Thunder Disaster sword up high, Yi Chun threw out a sword attack. A massive black thunder ball looked like a falling black sun, falling into the group of bats. Boom! The thunder light appeared, spreading out like a spider web. Hundreds of bats were killed under that sword attack, and a burnt smell spread out. Qing Lu and the other 3 also made their moves, attacking toward the incoming bats. But there were too many ghost bats. At first, it was just a dark mass, but later, it was like a black tide that covered the sky and the earth. Creak. A giant umbra ghost bat with a hint of red was hiding in the swarm of bats. It spat out a black halo towards Yi Chun and the others. This black halo almost ignored their protective true essence and shrouded over them. Danger! Yi Chun's perception was the best out of the 5. He was the first to react, moving 10 meters to the side and avoiding the black light. Qing Lu's speed was not slow either. Her body flashed once, and a blurry door appeared. The next second, she disappeared from where she was standing and reappeared hundreds of meters away. Although Yen Fengfeng and Morong Qingqing's speed was fast, but their reactions were a lot slower than Yi Chun and Qing Lu, so they were not able to avoid the black light. As for the leader of the mysterious peak, Lin Gaoming, it was even worse. He had been covered by the black light directly. Yen Fengfeng and Morong Qingqing were fine, but Lin Gaoming started to act strangely. The veins on his face were exposed, and both of his eyes were blood red. He looked like he had lost his mind, and a thunderous roar came out of his throat. He then turned around and jumped toward Yen Fengfeng. Yen Fengfeng was not completely unaffected. Perhaps it was because she was a blue phoenix, so she was not affected much. It was just that her aggressive qi was even more intense. Therefore, when Lin Gaoming jumped toward her, she threw out a punch instinctively, blowing him away. Yen Fengfeng only used 70% of her power in that punch, since she did not plan to hurt him. Unfortunately, Lin Gaoming, who had been blown away, fell into the swarm of bats. His whole body was wrapped up layer after layer. Soon, he had been wrapped into a 100 meters wide black massive ball. The black massive ball kept on spinning, looking extremely horrifying. Mysterious sky spell. Qing Lu saw that the situation was not right, so she threw out a palm attack. Boom! The black massive ball exploded, and Lin Gaoming's body was nowhere to be seen. He had probably been devoured until there were no bones left. Do not fight it head-on. Go down. Qing Lu's expression changed drastically. It was her first time facing so many shadow ghost bats, especially the leader that was hiding in the dark. Qing Lu had some understanding of that black halo before. It was the natural power of the dark creatures. When used on the dark creatures, it would increase their power drastically, making them not afraid of death. But when used on humans, it would make them lose their minds and go crazy. Lin Gaoming was not Yen Fengfeng, who had a beast body, nor was he Morong Qingqing, who had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, which made him half a dark creature. Therefore, out of the 3 of them, only Lin Gaoming was affected. Shoo! 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 The 4 flashed their bodies and flew into the forest. Shoo! 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 The bats chased after them like a black river. Moving through the forest, the 4 of them were much more relaxed. The forest was very dense, and the vines were everywhere. It was very difficult for the ghost bats to catch up with them in large numbers. As time went by, the number of ghost bats chasing after them decreased. They were either shaken off or devoured by the dangerous creatures hiding in the dark, without a sound. Break! However, there were dangers in the forest as well, and it was hard to defend against. In the dark, a house-sized bright red flower shot out of the ground, attacking toward Yi Chun on the left. Yi Chun's reaction was extremely sharp. A black sword qi sliced through the air, cutting the flower in half. A huge amount of acidic liquid poured out, making a sizzling sound. Right after that, a huge amount of killer vines attacked the 4 from all directions. In the underground environment, there was an invisible power covering them. The light was dim, and the 4's soul power could only reach out a couple 100 meters. The attacking speed of the vines was way too fast, and they could only react when it got close to them. It made the 4 panic, and their speed decreased drastically. The good thing was that there were only a few bats chasing after them, so they had finally gotten rid of one danger. Finally, the 4 made it through the forest and arrived at the swamp area. If it is not necessary, try not to go above the forest. Qing Lu was very sad. Lin Gaoming was one of the main pillars of the mysterious martial school, and he was only in his 90s this year. If he did not die, He might be able to reach half-step king warrior level in the remaining years, and it might even be possible for him to become a life and death realm warrior. Dying like this would be a huge loss for the mysterious martial school. Yan Fengfeng said. If I had used a bit less power, or if I had just dodged it, it would have been fine. She was a bit blaming herself. She could have dodged it, but there seemed to be that evil qi inside of her that she had to explode. Qing Lu waved her hand and said, "This has nothing to do with you. The brutal halo's effect on the beasts is even more powerful than humans. Because of your noble bloodline, you were not affected as much. It is already very rare for you to be able to control your mind." Pausing for a second, Qing Lu said again, "The dead cannot be revived. From now on, we will have to be more careful." Among the remaining four, besides her, Yan Fengfeng, Yi Chen, and even Morong Qingqing were all martial geniuses that Qing Xian thought highly of. It would be hard for her to accept even one of them dying. If all of them died, she would not have the face to go back to the mysterious martial school. "Senior, don't worry. We will take care of ourselves." Yi Chen knew that Qing Lu's burden was huge, so he said with determination, "All right, let's go." Qing Lu sighed, her eyes turning sharp. Damn it! Why are there so many shadow ghost bats? In the sky above the forest, a huge amount of shadow ghost bats were chasing after the Shadow King, forcing him into a very difficult situation. If it were just normal shadow ghost bats, he would not be in such a difficult situation. But the shadow ghost bat leader's brutal halo had affected him a lot. 100 Shadow Transformation. Forming a spell with both of his hands, the Shadow King split into two, then four. Hundreds of clones appeared all of a sudden, before he managed to escape from the shadow ghost bats. After the Shadow King had left, the black rock on top suddenly cracked open. A black stone coffin fell from the sky, being held by a lot of shadow ghost bats. Crack! Crack! The lid of the black stone coffin moved open slowly, revealing the pitch-black darkness inside. Within a couple of blinks of an eye, the coffin cover had been completely opened. That horrifying black chi poured out, forming into a ball in the midair. Pooh! The black chi disappeared, and a human-shaped shadow ghost bat appeared in the midair. Such a delicious smell of blood and flesh. This human-shaped shadow ghost bat was 3 meters tall. It was muscular, and its skin was a metallic black color. A pair of fangs were exposed, dripping with purple liquid. On its back was a pair of black cloud-like bat wings. There was a pair of claws on the wings, which were sharp and curved. Licking its lips, a lot of colors flashed through its eyes. There was violence, cunning, cruelty, evil, and madness. King! All of the shadow ghost bats surrounded it. Some of the leaders who were hiding in the dark also walked out, speaking in human language. "You guys are so useless. You can't even stop a few people." The human-shaped shadow ghost bat was the shadow ghost bat king. It had been sleeping for a long time, and would only wake up after being stimulated by the smell of blood and flesh. However, it was different from humans. Every time it woke up, it would take days to prepare. When the first batch of people came in, it had woken up, but when it finally woke up, a few batches of people had already passed by. The leader of the shadow ghost bat lowered its head, not saying a word. It was not their fault for being useless. In the first 3 batches of people, there were powerful half-step king warriors. "Alright, since I am out, then no one will pass through this place. Someone else is coming." The shadow ghost bat king's body flashed once, disappearing from where it was standing. Dozens of miles away, 3 human figures flew at a high speed. All of a sudden, a huge amount of black chi appeared in front of them. "Hee, stay here and be my blood food." The shadow ghost bat king's body appeared. Not good. It is a half-step king warrior among the dark creatures. There was a half-step king warrior among the 3 as well. He was shocked as he threw out a blade attack. Swoosh! The blade light sliced through the black chi, and the shadow ghost bat king's body was cracked open. However, it was only a shadow of the shadow ghost bat king. The real one appeared above the 3's heads. Go! A circle of black aggressive light spread out from the shadow ghost bat king's body, covering the 3 inside. Their protective Zhen Yuan was almost useless. The aggressive light released by the shadow ghost bat king was 10 times more horrifying than the one released by the leader, including that half-step king warrior. They all fell into a crazy state and started to attack each other. Soon, there was only that human half-step king warrior left. Die! The shadow ghost bat king jumped over and bit that half-step king warrior's neck. It sucked his blood and turned him into a dried-up corpse. Chapter 726. It's so delicious. The ghost bat king dropped the dried corpse in his hand and licked his lips, an intoxicated expression appearing on his face. How many years had it been? 50 years, 100 years, perhaps even a few hundred years? He had always been in deep sleep. He didn't expect that as soon as he woke up, a human half-step king would come knocking on his door. After absorbing the essence of this half-step king's flesh, he could feel a surging power awakening in the depths of his body. It was not far from its peak, provided that there were enough prey. As long as I absorbed 3 more people's flesh, no one under life and death realm would be my opponent. Shwa. The black chi shrunk as the ghost bat king disappeared into nothingness. On the ground, beside the entrance of the graveyard, dozens of people were gathered. Iron Hand King, what a coincidence to meet you here. The speaker was a half-step demi-beast with a pair of bull horns on his head. He was the half-step demi-beast king of the barbarian bull family Hawk. The barbarian bull family was famous for their power. Even the royal sky tiger family might not be able to surpass them. Iron Hand King had dealt with Hawk before, so he laughed. So it's Hawk. I thought your barbarian bull family was not going to send anyone. Hawk let out a puff of white chi from his nose. For Extreme Emperor's graveyard has appeared. How could my barbarian bull family be indifferent? Iron Hand King, the situation down there is unknown. How about we join hands? That would be for the best. But before we join hands, we have to take care of some problems first. Iron Hand King looked at the skinny elder and the young man with the symbol on his forehead with an evil intention. No need for you to do anything. Hawk will take care of them. The barbarian bull family was stubborn and arrogant, and Hawk was no exception. He had inherited the family's fine tradition. Reckless. The young man said indifferently without any expression. You dare to look down on me? Hawk could feel the young man's disdain. More and more white chi came out of his nose, and his eyes turned red like 2 dots of red light. Elder Foam, I will play with him. Don't get involved. The symbol on the young man's forehead flickered, and his connection with the heaven and earth became even stronger. Bull charge. Hawk didn't care what kind of confidence the young man had. As long as he was displeased, he would send the other party to hell. Hawk's muscles bulged as he threw a punch at the young man. The giant black bull phantom raised its hooves and galloped, opening its mouth to let out a high-pitched cry. 5 symbol palm. The young man put his left hand behind his back and struck out with his palm. Boom! The 5 runes stuck to the body of the giant bull phantom, causing a shocking explosion. You have some tricks up your sleeve, but it's not enough. The white gas that came out of Hawk's nose was incomparably hot, and there were even faint sparks. His arms shook, and the muscles on his body swelled once again. At the same time, the phantom of a demonic bull condensed in the void behind him. This bull's eyes were like copper bells, and the aura it emitted was supreme. Roar! The phantom of the demonic bull condensed, and Hawk's strength multiplied. His entire body seemed to have an inexhaustible amount of energy. He let out a loud roar, and the wind and clouds changed color, and the world became silent. Pure strength is enough, but your barbarian bull clan is too stupid. You don't know how to use your own strength. The glaze rune between his eyebrows flickered to the extreme. The young man stretched out his right hand, and pieces of twisted runes materialized and floated above his palm, looking magnificent and magnificent. Absolute strength is absolute strength. Anyone who looks down on my barbarian bull clan will pay the price. The horns on Hawk's head flickered with black light, and with 2 puff sounds, 2 bullhorn phantoms shot out like 2 sledgehammers, and also like 2 sharp spears. Symbol shield. The young man's right hand moved, and the twisted runes on his left hand split apart. A part of them gathered on his right hand, condensing into an indestructible shield. Boom! Boom! The runes and the bullhorn phantoms dissipated at the same time. Bull demon trampling the sky. Hawk's entire body rose from the ground. His hands opened wide, his left leg bent, and his right leg stretched out perfectly straight. Like a bull's hoof, he ruthlessly stomped towards the young man in front of him. With this stomp, with the young man as the center, a huge hoof print appeared. The air was even heavier than mercury. 100-symbol seal. The young man wasn't someone to be trifled with. He drew a complete circle in the air with his right hand and pushed it forward. Dozens of twisted runes converged into a strange mudra and blasted towards Hawk, who was in midair. The mercury-like heavy air immediately escaped in all directions as soon as it came into contact with the mudra. Boom! Like a comet hitting the earth, a huge sound exploded between the two. The crazy bull demon phantoms and the twisted runes clashed against each other, creating a soul-stirring scene. Mountain-breaking Iron Hand. Right at this moment, the Iron Hand King, who had been biding his time, suddenly made his move. His first move was the Iron Hand art that he was extremely good at. A huge iron hand with a metallic luster appeared out of nowhere, grabbing towards the young man. Once it was firmly grasped, even if the latter had bronze skin and iron bones, he would still be crushed into a bloody pulp. "Sir, do you think I don't exist?" The skinny elder raised his hand, and a crescent moon formed by the storm swept across the iron hand. With a cracking sound, the iron hand had lost 5 fingers, turning into a toothless tiger. Interesting. The Iron Hand King looked at the skinny elder with a serious and surprised expression. Bull demon stomps the ground. Hawk was still fighting with the young man. Waves of fluctuations radiated out, and the ground was full of cracks. "Hawk, stop," the Iron Hand King said to Hawk. "The battle is not over yet. I will beat him." Hawk's eyes were red, and he was breathing heavily like an angry bull. "Did you forget why you came here?" The Iron Hand King knew that the people of the barbaric bull family were all stubborn. Persuading them was useless, and he could only let them know what was more important. Sure enough, after the angry Hawk heard this, he hesitated. He naturally knew the purpose of coming here, and if he did not do well, he would not be able to explain himself when he went back. Honor. The skinny elder did not want to fight to the death with the Iron Hand King and Hawk. It was not the right time yet. "Yes." The young man stopped and stood still. "I have never seen you two before, so I don't know your names." Although the skinny elder did not reveal much of his power, the Iron Hand King had a premonition that this person was very powerful. The skinny elder said, "Names are just a code. Forgive us for not being able to keep you company." After speaking, his body flickered and shot toward the entrance of the graveyard. The young man followed behind him. Hawk walked to the Iron Hand King and said fiercely, "If they hinder me, I don't mind killing them." The Iron Hand King squinted his eyes and said, "Don't look down on them. That old man is very hard to deal with." Yi Chen's group of 5 was very unlucky. Not long after flying above the swamp land, they encountered 3 swamp beast leaders and a swamp king. The swamp beast's power was far more powerful than the ghost bats. Normal swamp beasts were equivalent to peak master-level masters, and the swamp beast leader's power was several times more powerful than normal swamp beasts. In the master-level ranking, it could be ranked in the top 5. Meanwhile, the swamp king's power was simply heaven-defying. Normal half-step kings would only be torn apart if they encountered it. After finally taking care of the 3 swamp beast leaders, Yi Chen and the other 3 realized that they could not get rid of the Swamp King. The Swamp King was completely different from normal swamp beasts or swamp beast leaders. Its energy core did not seem to be inside its body, and its body could easily blend into the swamp land and then appear in another direction. In other words, unless the 4 left the swamp land in an instant, they would not be able to escape from the Swamp King's pursuit. Nirvana Flame. After reaching rank 10, Yen Fengfeng could already condense Nirvana pellets. These pellets had no other use other than to replenish the Nirvana flame. After swallowing 1 pellet, Yen Fengfeng had already recovered to her peak state. With a flap of her wings, the extremely sticky Nirvana flame burned toward the Swamp King. Swoosh! The Swamp King's left arm was instantly caught on fire, but it was useless. The arm automatically slid down, and turned into a puddle of muddy water, losing connection with the Swamp King. Gold Fury. Yi Chen pierced through the Swamp King's head with his sword. The last one to attack was Morong Qingcheng. She quickly formed a spell, and a dark light ball formed right next to the Swamp King. It continued to spin and absorbed the Swamp King's energy. However, the Swamp King's energy seemed to be endless. Even after the dark light ball had absorbed enough energy, its chi did not weaken at all. You will not be able to kill it like this. We have to find its energy core. Qing Lu had slapped the Swamp King into muddy water. Seeing that the Swamp King had reformed dozens of meters away, she could not help but frown as she said to the other three. Morong, can you see it? Yi Chen asked Morong Qingcheng. Her demonic eyes had the power to see through everything. Let me try. Morong Qingcheng opened her gold demonic eyes, trying to find something. After a long while, Morong Qingcheng shook her head. I can't find it. He does not seem to have any energy core. No energy core? Impossible. Qing Lu said with certainty. Yi Chen thought about it and said, once humans reach the life and death realm, their Zhen Yuan would be able to merge with their body and gain the undying body. Could the Swamp King have this kind of power? His energy core had already merged with the swamp land? The undying body of a life and death realm warrior was still different from Yi Chen's undying body. Yi Chen's undying body could only be described as a simplified version, and its effect would be greatly reduced. Undying body. Qing Lu seemed to have thought of something and said with surprise, perhaps he has already reached the King Warrior level? Impossible. If he had reached the King Warrior level, then his power would be at least a couple of times stronger than it is now. He would be able to kill us within seconds. Yi Chen glanced at the swamp land and said, Senior, this might not be impossible. After battling for so long, we can already be sure that the Swamp King has a close relationship with the swamp land. Perhaps it is because of the swamp land that he has the undying body. Besides that, this swamp land is also the source of his power. As long as he does not leave the swamp land, his undying body would be unbreakable. The undying body of a life and death realm warrior could be broken through, because each time he was wounded, he would have to spend a lot of Zhen Yuan. Once his Zhen Yuan was used up, the undying body would lose its meaning. Moreover, the power of the Swamp King had merged with the power of the swamp land. Qing Lu nodded with a dark expression. That is indeed possible. But for us this is not good news. He will never die in the swamp land, unless someone destroys the whole swamp land. They could not run away, and they could not kill him either. The four of them were stuck there. Chapter 727. You will all become the nutrients for this swamp land. As the four were talking, the 5-meter-tall brown-green Swamp King jumped up into the air. Its water tank-sized fist tore open the air and threw out a punch. Boom! Qing Lu took on the punch head-on, her body sliding backward. Since there is no other way, then I will hold it off. You guys leave the swamp land immediately. The Swamp King was very powerful, and Qing Lu thought that she would be weaker than it. Plus, with her immortal body and endless power source, she would have to hold it off by herself. Even Yi Chen would not be able to do it. Teacher. Yan Fengfeng looked worried. Qing Lu said, Don't worry, without you guys here, I will have a higher chance of escaping. Yi Chen protect the two. She believed in Yi Chen's ability to survive. Yes. Yi Chen nodded. He said to Yan Fengfeng and Morong Qingcheng, Let's go. We should not add more pressure to Senior Qing Lu. Yan Fengfeng and Morong Qingcheng knew that Yi Chen was right. If they stayed, they would not be able to do anything. So leaving as soon as possible would be the best solution. Shoo! The three started to run toward the front. Do you think you can leave? The Swamp King's body merged into the swamp land. When it reappeared, it was already in front of Yi Chen and the other two. Who? Right when the Swamp King was about to attack, a blurry light door appeared. Qing Lu flew out from inside, blowing away the opponent with one palm attack. Let's go! Qing Lu yelled. Let's go! The three did not have any extra thoughts as they flew at full speed. All right, I will take care of you first, then take care of them. The Swamp King's green gem-like pupils shone with a cold light. He reached out his hand into the air and said with a low voice, Swamp Fountain. Boom! Within 100 miles radius, the swamp land started to shake. The next second, 100 meters thick fountain exploded under Qing Lu. The earth power and water power interweaved together. Landing print. Qing Lu looked serious as she pressed down with her palm. Rumble. The fountain was blocked by the crystal palm print. With your strength, you can't do anything to me. The Swamp King's power was only slightly higher than Qing Lu's. If it were not for the fact that she was afraid of his immortal body and endless power, Qing Lu would have joined hands with Yi Chen to wound him. There was no need for her to run away. That's right. With my current strength, I can't do anything to you. The Swamp King stopped attacking and stood on the swamp. However, this is not my true strength. Voila! With that, the Swamp King's body melted into the swamp. Qing Lu frowned. She could not understand what he was trying to do. Soon, Qing Lu noticed the change in the swamp. The color of the swamp was fading at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if something was extracting the essence and energy of the swamp, leaving behind only mud. This is my true strength. A pile of green shadow jumped out from the swamp, throwing a punch towards Qing Lu. There was no time to dodge or block. All Qing Lu could do was cross her hands and block the attack. Crack. Her protective Zhen Yuan was shattered instantly. The sound of metal twisting was heard. The top-rank armor on Qing Lu's arm had been completely destroyed, and her bones had broken as well. It looked like it was going to break at any second. She herself looked like she was struck by lightning. Her body was blown backward uncontrollably, crashing into the black rocks on top, shattering a black stalactite into pieces. Pooh! Puking out a huge amount of blood, Qing Lu, who had sunk into the black rocks, looked down with shock. The Swamp King's power was even more powerful than before, at least twice as powerful. If before, Qing Lu was only slightly weaker than the Swamp King, then right now, even 5 of her would not be able to beat it. How is it? My power. The Swamp King, who was standing on the swamp, had a huge change. His height had dropped from 5 meters to 3.5 meters, and his color had changed from brown-green to dark green. The biggest change was not the height or the color, but the nature of his body. His body looked like it was made out of green crystal. Green liquid kept coming out of his body, flowing downwards. When it reached the bottom of his feet, it went back into his body again. I see. Before it was just another form of yours, right? Flying out of the pit, Qing Lu swallowed a pellet. As the medicinal power spread out, Qing Lu's wounds recovered quickly. Her broken bones had also reconnected. It was a semi-extreme rank healing pellet, which was extremely valuable. Not bad. The Swamp King opened his crystal-like mouth. There were no teeth inside, only green sticky liquid. 2 forms. The first form allowed you to never be killed in the swamp land, but your power was on the weaker side. The second form increased your power, but gave your undying body a weakness. As long as I use up your power, the undying body would be useless. Qing Lu did not lose her cool as she analyzed. You are very smart, but do you think you can use up my power? The Swamp King was not worried at all. In the other form, his power was endless. As long as the swamp land was not destroyed, he would not be destroyed either. Right now, although his power had been reduced, it was still dozens of times more powerful than normal half-step king warriors. For her to be able to use up 1/10 of his power was already impressive enough. How would you know without trying? A light flashed once, and a huge hammer appeared in Qing Lu's hand. It was square-shaped and extremely heavy, so heavy that even the air could not move. Ooh! A blurry light door appeared in front of the Swamp King. Qing Lu took a step forward and threw out a hammer attack onto the Swamp King's chest. The power pattern spread out. A shocking loud sound exploded. Half of the Swamp King's body had been shattered, disappearing in the wind. How is my attacking power? Qing Lu waved her hammer again, shattering the other half of the Swamp King's body as well. It was extremely horrifying. What kind of weapon is this? Hundreds of meters away, the body of the Swamp King reappeared. However, it seemed that the chi was a lot weaker than before. It was only 1/5 of his original power. Qing Lu's 2 hammers had consumed 1/5 of his power, which was unbelievable and incomprehensible. You can call it a pseudo-extreme rank item. Qing Lu breathed heavily. She hurried to swallow a semi-extreme rank pellet to replenish her Zhen Yuan, then took a bite of a water yuan fruit to nourish her body. The hammer in her hand was called the Square Sky Hammer, which was even more powerful than a semi-extreme rank item. A pseudo-extreme rank item was actually an extreme rank item, because it was the worst of the extreme rank items. Just like an extreme rank item, a pseudo-extreme rank item was like a black hole that devoured Jin Yuan. With Qing Lu's Demi-King warrior cultivation, 2 hammer attacks had already used up 2/3 of her Zhen Yuan. Pseudo-extreme rank item. Although the Swamp King was a swamp creature, it did not mean that he had low intelligence. The hammer in Qing Lu's hand could already threaten him, although he could recover to his first level anytime, but it was obvious that he could not kill her. Indeed, now I can go, right? Qing Lu did not care about the Swamp King's attitude. Her body flashed and shot out. I hope not everyone who comes in has a pseudo-extreme rank item. The Swamp King stood on the swamp ground and did not chase after Qing Lu. I think we can work together to take him on. In the sky above the jungle, there was an endless dark shadow ghost bats. In the center, the skinny elder, the young man Hawk Iron Hands, and a dozen other people were trapped here. Their opponents were not only a large number of dark shadow ghost bats, but also a terrifying dark shadow ghost bat king. The Bat King was way more powerful than any of them. 1-on-1, 2-on-1, they would not be able to take it on. 3-on-1, they could only barely keep themselves from losing. This Shadow Ghost Bat King was terrifyingly powerful. It had the power to beat normal Demi-King warriors. Indeed, we should work together. The Iron Hand King looked serious. If it were not for the skinny elder and Hawk, he would not be able to take on the Bat King by himself. If they wanted to survive, they would have to work together. Brat, wait until I kill him, then I will take care of you. The muscles on Hawk's body expanded. A massive demonic bull shadow stood behind him. With a casual punch, a huge amount of ghost bats would be shattered into pieces. The power of the bull family was not something to joke about. I will wait for you. The young man's body was covered in twisted symbols. The ghost bats that were attacking him were blown away. Kill me. Hee. The Bat King revealed a horrifying smile. You guys released the berserk aura together. The Bat King ordered the leader of the bats that were hiding in the dark. Yes, King. Who? Waves of vibration spread out as 4 to 5 black berserk auras enveloped everyone, covering a radius of several miles. Roar. A roar was heard. Apart from the skinny elder, the young man, Hawk, and the Iron Hand King, who had escaped from the berserk aura, the others had all fallen into madness and started to kill each other. Soon, besides these 4, everyone else had been killed. Bastard, die. Hawk and the Iron Hand King were furious. These were all the top master-level warriors of the Bull family and the Gu family, the pillars of their families. Even one death was not a small matter, let alone all of them dying in battle. Demon Bull roar. Hawk opened his mouth and roared. The sound wave spread out. With him as the center, all of the ghost bats within miles exploded into pieces. The ones that were miles away were slowed down and fell down. In terms of battling power, Hawk was indeed not as powerful as the Iron Hand King and the Skinny Elder. But in terms of pure power, he was the best out of the 3. You are looking for death. The Bat King was furious. Black chi surged out as he rushed towards Hawk. You are the one who will die. The Iron Hand King reached out his hand and grabbed in the air. The huge iron hand was about to close up and crush the Bat King. Shoo! The Bat King's speed increased again, and the huge iron hand was left behind. Fong of the storm. A violent storm appeared out of nowhere. Countless crescent-shaped wind blades spread out, covering the Bat King within and sweeping across the sky. Squeak! Squeak! The Shadow Ghost Bat King's attack scared the 4 of them. A huge amount of black smoke came out of its body. Countless black bats spread out in all directions. One of them was like an army of bats. Even the Shadow Ghost bats around were pushed far away. Ah! Demon Bull roar. Huoke's body was covered with bats. These bats had their teeth embedded in his body and were sucking his flesh and blood. Huoke roared and shattered a large number of bats. Unfortunately, there were too many bats. Even more bats pounced on him and drilled into his body. In the blink of an eye, Wuxia was sucked dry. A grand half-step demonic king had died in an instant. So delicious. The bats merged into one and the Bat King's body appeared. He licked the blood stain on his lips. Chapter 728. Fuck. What the hell is this guy? Iron Hand King's hair stood on end. In terms of battle strength, although Umbra Ghost Bat King was powerful, it was not beyond his imagination. It was close to peak half-step kings. However, Umbra Ghost Bat King had too many tricks up his sleeves. His speed was fast, and his attacks were endless. Even a half-step king of the same level was not his opponent. Sooner or later, they would be killed and sucked dry. The only thing we can do now is to escape. The skinny old man's expression was grave. Old Feng, you run first. I'll catch up later. The young man seemed very calm, as if he had something to rely on. Then be careful. The skinny old man was not too worried about the young man. The latter was not an ordinary person. Although his battle strength was far from Umbra Ghost Bat King's, his survivability was definitely above his. I will. As he spoke, the twisting symbols around the young man's body increased by several folds. They were densely packed and layered, wrapping around him layer after layer. It was as if he was a huge ball made of countless symbols, revolving unceasingly. Wind escape. Huff. The skinny old man's figure disappeared with the wind, as if he had become one with it. He was the wind, and the wind was him. Iron Hand King saw the skinny old man leave while the young man stood there motionlessly. His eyes flickered, and he turned into a beam of metal light and shot out. Pung. A huge sound echoed. Umbra Ghost Bat King saw through Iron Hand King's intention and chased after him, slashing at Iron Hand King's protective Zhen Yuan. Surprisingly, Iron Hand King's protective Zhen Yuan was extremely sturdy and was not broken. You can't kill me. Iron Hand King swallowed a pill and continued to escape. Pung 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 pung. A series of explosions rang out as Iron Hand King tumbled around in the air. His protective Zhen Yuan was not broken at all. If one observed carefully, one would notice that his protective Zhen Yuan was different from other people's oval-shaped protective Zhen Yuan. It was an armor-shaped protective Zhen Yuan, and this armor-shaped protective Zhen Yuan came from Iron Hand King's armor. Defensive artifact. Umbra Ghost Bat King saw the problem. Not bad. Iron Hand King chuckled. The armor on his body had a great origin. It was the only pseudo-supreme grade defensive artifact of the Gu family, called the Green Origin Armor. With it, as long as his Zhen Yuan hadn't been exhausted, his defense would be unbreakable. Origin Array Technique. The Zhen Yuan outside Iron Hand King's body burned fiercely as he continued flying. This wasn't the end. Burning Zhen Yuan was something an astral-reaching expert could grasp. The frightening part of the origin arrangement art was that it could burn in layers. The first layer only increased his speed, the second layer increased his speed by 30%, and the third layer increased his speed by 30% on top of the second layer. With a swish, the Iron Hand King turned into a ray of light and instantly left the Ghost Shadow Bat King behind. Oh, there's actually such a method of escape? Fine. I'll let the Swamp King deal with you while I take care of the first checkpoint. It wasn't that the Shadow Ghost Bat King couldn't catch up with the Iron Hand King, but he didn't think it was necessary. He had a feeling that more and more people would enter the underground world, and all he needed to do was wait. Why aren't you running? The Shadow Ghost Bat King looked at the young man who was wrapped in the rune ball strangely. You think I can outrun you? The young man asked. That's true. Then are you willing to surrender? The Shadow Ghost Bat King wasn't interested in the young man at all. The latter's blood and flesh essence was far less than a half-step king warrior. But he could give it to his subordinates. No, I will trap you first, then I will leave. Thousand Symbol Array. The young man gave a thunderous roar. The large spell symbol sphere around his body expanded, turning into a hollow sphere with a radius of a few miles. Those twisted spell symbols stuck on the outside of the hollow sphere, moving along the sphere in a regular pattern. Countless twisted light patterns connected with each other, looking seamless and seamless. Shoo! After doing all this, the young man's body sank down and appeared outside of the hollow ball, running toward the direction where the skinny elder had left. Ha! The Shadow Ghost Bat King's eyes were extremely cold. His body flashed once, trying to chase after the young man. Boom! The symbols on the hollow ball all shone with a bright light, bouncing the Shadow Ghost Bat King back. Break for me! The Shadow Ghost Bat King's expression changed. The opponent was only a peak-level late Sea of Souls realm ant, but he could use his own power to set up such a powerful array, which made him quite surprised and angry. Boom! The hollow ball made of symbols shook a bit, stopping the Shadow Ghost Bat King's second attack. Boom! Boom! On top of the cliff, a human figure shot out toward the direction of the huge ball. The tomb of the 4 extreme emperors right here? The man who was talking to himself carried a battle blade on his back. His metal armor was exposed without any clothes covering it. If there were any human half-step king warriors here, they would be able to recognize him for sure. It was indeed one of the most powerful half-step king warriors, the Thunder Spirit King. It seems like a lot of people have already made it in. The Thunder Spirit King heard the commotion in front of him, but he looked calm. Shoo! 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 Tens of miles flashed past within a second, and the Thunder Spirit King saw the source of the noise. In front of those huge bats, a huge ball made of spell symbols exploded with a boom. A human-shaped bat with a muscular body walked out, looking at him with a pair of cold eyes. Another human half-step king warrior. My luck is indeed not bad. The Shadow Ghost Bat King licked his lips. The anger from before had disappeared completely. Nothing could be more exciting than having food delivered to one's doorstep. I am afraid that your luck is just bad luck. The Thunder Spirit King scanned around, his eyes filled with thunder and lightning. Little ones get him. The Shadow Ghost Bat King could tell that the Thunder Spirit King was not a normal warrior, so he planned to let his bats surround him first before making his move. Shoo! 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 Countless dark shadow ghost bats flew towards the Thunder Spirit King. Die! Using his right palm as a blade, the Thunder Spirit King spat out one word softly, before throwing out a palm blade attack. Whoosh! The thunder blade light flashed once before disappearing, and all of the incoming ghost bats were destroyed. Looking from afar, it was like a black wave had been cut in half by a blade attack. The Shadow Ghost Bat King's pupils shrunk into 2 dots, as it was shocked beyond belief. Perhaps you can play with me for a bit. The Thunder Spirit King looked at the Shadow Ghost Bat King. Don't be so arrogant. The Shadow Ghost Bat King screamed, and jumped toward the Thunder Spirit King at an extreme speed. Piss off! Facing the Shadow Ghost Bat King's aggressive attack, the Thunder Spirit King still threw out a palm blade attack. Swoosh! Dark blood splashed everywhere. The Shadow Ghost Bat King's right shoulder to the left side of its abdomen had been cut by the blade light. Its whole body was almost cut in half, and even the bones and organs could be seen. Boom! The Shadow Ghost Bat King showed up at its original position. It looked down at its chest, then looked at the Thunder Spirit King. There was a hint of fear in its cold eyes. Although its power had not recovered to its peak yet, it was at least 80 to 90% of its peak power. However, his opponent did not even take out his blade, and only one palm blade attack had almost cut it into pieces. With this kind of power, even if it was at its peak, it would not dare to say that it could win. The flesh and blood of the Shadow Ghost Bat King wriggled, and the wound on its body started to close up. There was no sign of it being wounded at all. This was the special ability of the Shadow Ghost Bat King, and it had nothing to do with its immortal body. Oh, you are qualified to make me take out my blade a bit. The Thunder Spirit King held the handle of the blade on his back with his right hand, and slowly took it out. The blade light was cold, and the blade was extremely sharp. A bright electric arc flashed through the blade. You can pass! The Shadow Ghost Bat King screamed, and tried to escape. What kind of joke was this? His opponent had almost killed him without even taking out his blade. If he took out his blade, he would definitely die, or even die without a doubt. He had not lived long enough, at least not now. Of course, when he recovered to his peak, he would find his opponent to take revenge. Before he recovered to his peak, he would have to lower his noble head. If the Iron Hand King were here, he would definitely be shocked. This Ghost Shadow Bat King had killed many of them, and some of them had escaped. In terms of power, It was already close to or equivalent to a top half-step king warrior. And yet it was scared to this extent. Just how powerful was the Thunder Spirit King? Very well. Putting his blade back into the scabbard, the Thunder Spirit King did not take a detour, but shot straight toward the group of bats. Squeak! 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 All of the bats screamed and backed off to the sides, forming a wide path. After passing through the swamp, Yi Chun and the other two slowed down their speed, but they did not dare to relax for even a second. Who knew if there were other dangers besides the Swamp King? My power is still far from enough. Before coming here, although Yi Chun knew that his power was not that much among the half-step king warriors, he had always had it easy, so he did not feel too much. At least, he was not in a rush to increase his power at all costs. But right now he felt that his power was still not enough. Not to mention the dangerous creatures here. Just those half-step king warriors, who had come for the tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor, were enough to make him feel a heavy pressure. Right now, his power was only equivalent to a normal half-step king warrior, and there was still a gap between him and the top half-step king warriors. And above that, there were still the top half-step king warriors and the most powerful half-step king warriors. He was at the bottom, only above those top master-level warriors. He did not think that there were only these few half-step king warriors who had come. There were a lot of them that he had not seen yet, such as the half-step king warriors from the top 9 martial schools, the top 4 families, the other rank 5 martial schools, and those half-step king warriors from the demi-beast families, who rarely showed themselves. Even if his survival ability was extremely powerful, it would be useless for him to run into those half-step king warriors who could kill him. If he wanted to preserve his life, and if he wanted to gain something from the tomb of Emperor of 4 Extremes, the only way was to increase his strength and reach a higher level. There was no other way. Find a safe place and try my best to reach late seas of Soul's realm, or even peak level. Yi Chun thought to himself. Yi Chun, are you okay? Morong Qingqing saw that Yi Chun had a lot on his mind, so she asked. I'm okay. We will wait for Senior Qing Lu here. Chapter 729. Time passed by bit. After about 15 minutes, Qing Lu had arrived. Teacher. Yen Fengfeng let out a breath. Senior, are you all right? Yi Chun said. Qing Lu shook her head and said, Luckily I let you guys leave. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. After turning into its second form, its power had increased by 2 times. Without the pseudo-extreme rank weapon, even she would not be able to handle a couple of attacks. What about the Swamp King? Qing Lu said. He is still here, and even more powerful than before. Let's talk on the way. Within thousands of miles of the swamp land, a loud sound was heard before everything returned to silence. Where did this monster come from? After an unknown period of time, the Swamp King crawled out of the mud, his pitch-black gem-like eyes filled with fear. The opponent had only thrown out 1 blade attack. 1 blade attack had already used up half of his power. If he were to throw out another blade attack, he might very well be killed. He had never expected that there would be such a powerful being among the Demi-King warriors. His undying body was nothing in front of the opponent. And since the opponent could make it all the way here, he must have taught that huge bat a lesson, or even killed him. Damn it! I have lost half of my power. I would need at least half a month to recover from the swamp land. If I get hurt again, the power of the swamp land would not be enough. I hope that huge bat is killed. Without him, there would be more people coming here and using their dead bodies to nourish the swamp land. My power would be even more powerful. The Swamp King was born from the purest energy of the swamp. To a certain extent, he was the swamp, and the swamp was him. The two were bound together. As for the swamp monsters and the swamp monster leader, they were born from the leftover energy of the swamp. They were naturally weak, and their defenses weren't high enough. If there were enough dead bodies to nourish the swamp land, then all of the swamp monsters would increase their power as a whole, and his power would reach a whole new level. I have a feeling that this trip to the tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor would be very deadly. Flying in the air, Qing Lu sighed and said. Yi Chun said. 4 Extreme Emperor is a famous titled monarch from ancient times. His tomb's appearance will definitely cause a storm of blood. We're merely pawns. The real main characters are those people, not us. You're right. Qing Lu knew who Yi Chen was talking about. Right now, all of the king warriors were planning. Some were calling their friends, and some were forming alliances. Her disciple Yin Qingxian was on the same side as the old Dragon King of the Dragon God Celestial Palace. Back then, they had even chased after the 9 underworld demon king together, destroying the 9 evil cult. However, a battle between kings will only happen among kings. It has nothing to do with us. The King Realm Kings would be restrained by the King Realm Kings. They were on 2 different levels. There was no distinction between black and white in the underground environment. After roughly half a day, the 3 of them arrived at a barren rocky forest. That looks like a spider web. Morong Qingqing's eyes were sharp. In the depths of the stone forest ahead, she saw a slightly transparent giant spider web. This spider web had a diameter of 300 meters. With her eyesight, she could see that the thinnest spider silk was as thick as an arm. Everyone pay attention. Qing Lu slowed down her speed and flew into the stone forest. Be careful. Without any sign, Qing Lu was suddenly stuck in the surreal space, as if she had been caught by something. Her heart skipped a beat as she turned around to warn Yi Chen and the other 2. Boom, boom, boom. Yi Chen took out his thunder disaster sword almost instinctively. He sliced 3 times around Qing Lu's body, forming an inverted triangle. During the whole process, there was a sound of a steel wire breaking. Qing Lu got out of the trap and backed out. This is the invisible spider web. She reached out her hand to grab the invisible spider web on her body. She realized that even with her soul power, she could barely sense its existence. Invisible spider web? Yi Chen frowned. He did not even notice the existence of the spider web before. He scanned it with his soul power, but it was empty. He just felt that something was not right. Now that the spider web had been sliced open, he could sense it and simulate the shape of the spider web in his mind. Like a bolt of lightning, a shadow darted into the void and stuck there. It was a bathtub-sized spider with 8 legs. There were 2 colors of black and white on its back. Its pitch-black mouth opened and closed, looking like it was about to devour someone. Obviously, it had sensed the movement of the spider web, so this spider that was hiding in the dark jumped out immediately. It was planning to use the spider web to wrap up its prey and enjoy it slowly. Unfortunately, Qing Lu had already gotten out, which made it miss its target. Of course, with this spider's chi, it was only equivalent to a top master level warrior. Even without Yi Chen, it would not be able to do anything to Qing Lu, who was a half-step king warrior. It would probably be broken into pieces right away. It is a predator that had disappeared from the outside world. Qing Lu recognized the spider right away. There were still predators in this true spirit continent, but they were very rare. Most of them had been captured by the powerful human warriors, who treated them as their own wealth, and used the spider web to make special items. This predator had the power of a top master level warrior at most, but once a top master level warrior was caught in the web, they would not be able to escape at all. It was not hard to imagine how powerful it was. Shoo! Seeing that there was no prey, the predator turned around and left immediately. It was fast like a shadow. Where do you think you are going? Qing Lu threw out a palm attack and killed the predator in the midair. Green blood spilled everywhere. Deep inside the rock forest, Great Master, save me. In the midair, a huge invisible web had caught Lin Ruhai and Xiaohozuan. The armored king was caught as well, but he soon broke out of the spider web and escaped. Lin Ruhai and Xiaohozuan were panicking as they yelled at the armored king. Alright. The armored king activated his Zhen Yuan and ripped off the broken spider web on his body, trying to save the 2. All of a sudden a shadow appeared. 2 massive predators jumped at Lin Ruhai and Xiaohozuan from the left and right respectively. These 2 predators were even bigger than the ones Yi Chen and the rest had encountered. Their chi was even more horrifying. They were the king of the predators, and their power was equivalent to normal half-step king warriors. No! Save me! Lin Ruhai and Xiaohozuan yelled at the same time. The armored king had a bad look on his face. Lin Ruhai and Xiaohozuan were dozens of meters away from each other, and in a short amount of time, he could only save one of them. After all, these two predators both had the power of half-step king warriors, and it would be impossible to kill them within a second. If he took the risk, he might lose both of them. Biting on his teeth, the armored king decided to save Xia Hozuan first. For the school, Xia Hozuan was more important than Lin Rahai, even if he was the headmaster of the school. Why? A desperate look appeared in Lin Rahai's eyes. The armored king did not look at Lin Rahai, as he instantly appeared right next to Xia Hozuan. His rich Zhen Yuan was activated, shattering the spider web instantly. He then reached out his hand and grabbed Xia Hozuan. Shoo! Seeing that its prey had been taken away, the predator that jumped at Xia Hozuan changed its target to the armored king. Piss off! The armored king threw out a punch at the predator's head, leaving a fist mark on it. At the same time, the predator was blown out 100 meters away, hanging in the midair. Meanwhile, a scream came from Lin Rahai. His head had been pierced through by the predator's mouth, and he died instantly. You all go die. Throwing Xia Hozuan onto the ground, the armored king's expression turned cold. His body flashed, arriving in front of the predator that had killed Lin Rahai. His 5 fingers formed into hooks as he grabbed out. Swoosh! The tough shell of the predator was nothing in front of the armored king. It was instantly pierced through, causing it to struggle in pain. It then shot out a transparent spider web toward the latter. Unfortunately, the latter's protective Zhen Yuan was not just for show, so the spider web stuck onto it and could not penetrate through. Die! The armored king used his arm's strength and reached his palm into the predator's body. His earth element Zhen Yuan exploded, and with a couple of cracking sounds, the predator was shattered by the expanding rock. This rock was simulated by the armored king's Zhen Yuan, so it was 100 times tougher than the real thing. The internal organs of the predator were not as tough as its shell, so how could it block it out? The other predator woke up from its dizziness. Seeing that its comrade had been killed, it spat out countless threads of spider silk from its mouth. The area it covered was shockingly large, trapping the armored king in an instant. Then, the spider silk grew thicker and thicker, until the predator's stomach was almost stuffed. Rock Mountain Defense. The armored king's protective Zhen Yuan flickered a couple of times, and a huge amount of rock expanded out, eventually forming a small rock mountain. Inside the mountain, the armored king's body moved, carrying the rock mountain and attacking toward the predator. After a loud explosion, the predator was blown into pieces. Amidst the flying rocks, the armored king jumped out and appeared right next to Xia Hozuan. Great master, thank you. Xia Hozuan was still scared as he thanked the armored king. Your life was exchanged with Lin Rahai's. Treasure it. The armored king said lightly. Yes, the headmaster will not die in vain. An endless ambition appeared in Xia Hozuan's eyes. He desperately needed to increase his power. With enough power, he would be able to protect himself. And with enough power, he would not need anyone to save him. Regarding the fact that he had almost died, Xia Hozuan was more frustrated than anyone else. Let's go. There might be an entrance in front. This time, Yi Chun and the other 3 were quite lucky. They had only been ambushed 3 times. The first 2 were normal predators, and the third one was a predator king, which had been slapped by Qing Lu until it puked out blood. Eventually, it used the spider web to escape. Soon the 4 arrived at the deepest part of the rock mountain. So many people. It was the first time they had seen so many people since they had entered the underground environment. With a rough look, there were at least 30 of them, and 1/3 of them were half-step king warriors. There were more than a dozen of them, and 3 of them had chi no weaker than the gold absolute king. One of them was even a bit more powerful than the gold absolute king, which was almost the same as the Punish king. Judging from their clothes and the clothes of the people behind them, Yi Chun could tell who they were from. One was a half-step king warrior from the Ice Pavilion. One was a half-step demi-beast king from the Sky Tiger race. And the last one was a half-step king warrior from the Lin family. The arrival of Yi Chun and the other 3 had attracted a lot of attention, including the armored king and Xia Hozuan. The armored king frowned. He thought that they would be the first ones to find the entrance, but there were already 30 people ahead of them. It was not hard to imagine that there would be other secret tunnels, besides the ones they had been through. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.